What's up, guys? Welcome back to the GMoney Poker channel. My name's Gunner. I'm excited to bring you this vlog today. I started working on it 3 weeks ago, and then I went on a downswing. January was a brutal month. I lost $8,000. And when I put that into perspective, it's not the worst downswing. I actually lost $15,000 in 2 back-to-back days last year. So this is about half as bad. I ended up coming back from that downswing last year and winning $30,000 to end the year. Through this downswing, it's been kind of tough to find the motivation to play poker, to practice with PLO Mastermind, to make vlogs. But I woke up this morning, I went to the gym, and I was feeling motivated. So here we are, back with the channel. I've been working with PLO Mastermind and the pre-flop skills trainer because I got 2 sessions coming up this week. I want to bring you some content from those sessions. Make sure to subscribe to the vlog to keep up with that content. And also give me a follow on my Instagram, GMoneyPoker5. I've been posting stories about some of the games I've been in recently. Been playing a lot of 5, 10, 20. I played the other day, and Andrew Nemi was in the game. It's a cool session. He made quads against another guy's top boat and stacked them. So that was cool to see live. I've been running bad though. I don't think I've been playing terrible poker, except a few hands. I want to go through some of the hands that I have played recently that have been a part of this downswing to give you a feel for how a downswing goes. And I'll talk through some of the hands right now. But kind of the key story is that I make the nuts and they're not the nuts by the river. So the first interesting hand from the session where Andrew Nemi played, I had Jack 10, 10, 7. I opened it to 80 and get 4 callers and flop gin. It was 9, 8, 6 with 2 spades. So I flopped the nut straight, and I have a redraw to a better straight with a queen. I bet pot on the flop, and get 2 callers. The turn's a blank, it's the 2 of diamonds. Checks to me, I bet pot again. Both opponents call, and there's about $2,000 in the middle. I'm hoping to see anything but a board pair or a spade, and the river's the queen of spades. One opponent led for $500, and I decided to fold. The other opponent called, and the guy who bet 500 showed the nut flush. So I flopped the nuts, turn a blank, put a bunch of money in the pot, and get drawn out on the river. What are you going to do? Another hand from that session, I got dealt ace, ace, 8, 7, double suited. 2 people in front of me put 105 in the pot. I pot it, they go all in. There's about 2,000 in the pot 3 ways. And I lose to 8, 6, 4 deuce. That made a flush. So definitely some run bad there. Another hand I had queen, jack, jack 10. And I had jack 10 of diamonds. The flop came gin. Or as close to gin as you could hope for without it being top set. It was jack, queen, ace with 2 diamonds. So I flopped bottom set and a royal flush draw. I bet 200 into 4 opponents. One guy calls. The turn's a blank, it's the 5 of hearts, and my opponent led into me for $400. Kind of sketchy, he was kind of saying he has king 10, but I had a 10 in my hand, and I had outs to boats, outs to flushes, and the royal draw, so I made the call. The river was another blank, the 8 of spades. My opponent led for $1,000, and I tanked for a while. It was a tough decision. I had a blocker in my hand, but I ultimately decided I had to fold against this particular opponent. And he said it was a monster flop for him. He had king, queen, queen 10. So he flopped a better set and the nut straight. I was only drawn to a diamond. But those are the types of hands I've been playing recently where you want to put money into the pot, but you just don't have the best hand by the river. Kind of seems like when I make the nuts, they don't stay the nuts. Or when I have a strong draw, it never gets there. Anyways, I've been through this before. I'll probably go through it again. But at some point the tides are going to turn and I'm going to start winning again. With that, I want to show you this first session I played in January. Really interesting one. Hope you enjoy it. If you like it, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's get to the hands. I drive to the lodge and I was excited to play. I had just come off 2 back-to-back sessions where I won $8,000 combined. I also was off a huge upswing where I won about $30,000. It almost felt like I couldn't lose, and I was expecting more winning. I buy into the 125 game for 2,000. My stack's already up to 2,400 after winning a few small pots. This game's been crazy. There's been $10, $20, and $40 straddles on almost every hand. This hand's no different. There's a $40 straddle on and a limper. I raise it to 175 in the cutoff. Having a suited ace and middling connected cards, this will be a hand that plays well in position, and I'll have easy decisions on flops. I get 2 callers, and we're headed 3 ways to the flop in position. The flop is 5 king ace rainbow. I flop top pair and not much else. Both my opponents check it to me, and I want to take a stab at this pot. I bet 225 and get 1 caller. The turn is the 6 of clubs, which gives me an open-ended straight draw. My opponent checks to me. I think with my hand, I have a decent bit of showdown value. I decide to pot control and check it back. The river's the ace of hearts, giving me trips. My opponent now leads into me for 650. This particular opponent's a regular and a decently strong player. He would know not to bet for value without a full house, which really means my hand is just a bluff catcher. I do block full houses having an ace. I'm in the tank. I'm thinking through the types of hands that he would defend from the $20 straddle. He would have kings, he could have fives, he could have ace king, ace six. The line I've taken also looks kind of weak, so there could be some thin value hands like ace queen or ace jack in his range. He also could have bluffs given that my line is weak, but I'm not quite sure what they are. Maybe a hand like queen jack 10. After thinking it over, I think that most players are going to be too value heavy when they lead on the river. I decide to fold. My opponent decides to show for the vlog. Guess you got kings?
No, he's bluffing. He's bluffing. I had the bluff.
That's a good bluff. It's a good bluff.
Wow.
My opponent shows that he flopped a Broadway wrap with queen jack 10 and destroys me in this hand. Nice hand to my opponent. In the next interesting hand, I look down at a similar hand, ace 9, 8 7 with ace high clubs. There's still a lot of straddling going on, $20 in this hand. There's 2 limps, and I raise it to 115. I get 3 callers, and I'm headed 4 ways to the flop. The flop is solid. I flop the nut flush draw on ace 10 king. I take a look at my opponent's stacks, and everyone has about a pot-sized bet left. I decide the best move here is the aggressive one, so I pot it for 475. It folds to the button, and they decide they want to play for it all. The button goes all in for 700. I snap it off. We run it one time. It comes to jack of hearts and then 9 of diamonds. This run out gives me a backdoor straight, 7 through jack. It took me a minute to realize I had it, and I flip it over and show my opponent. My opponent says they have a set, and they muck their hand. I'm going to take this one down, running it back up. I go a bit flop dead, and my stack's back to 2,500 before this hand starts. I moved over to the 5-5, 10, 20 game, so it's going to be a $25 bomb pot. I look down at queen, queen, 9 deuce with queen high diamonds. The top flop is 6, 4, 7 with 2 diamonds, and the bottom flop is king, 6, queen, rainbow. It checks to me in the cutoff, and having a strong made hand on the bottom and a strong draw on the top, I want to bet for value. I bet 125. This is where things get interesting. There's 5 callers. This threw up some red flags. I think this means quite a few people are going to have diamond draws, but I'm feeling good about my queens on the bottom. We head to the turn, and the top turn's the 10 of clubs. The bottom is the 3 of spades. I don't make a flush on the top, but I still feel good about my queens on the bottom. My opponent's checked to me again, and I have a decision here. If I check and the button checks behind, I'll be able to evaluate rivers and see if I make my flush on the top board. If the board pair's on the bottom, I can feel good about my full house. I decide to check, and this is where things get interesting again. The button now bets pot for 970. He only has 1175 total, so it's a pretty big bet relative to a stack. The small blind now calls 970. It folds back to me. This is actually a really tough spot. I feel like my hand is nutted on the bottom. I'm only behind pocket kings, which would be a disaster because that would also have me beat on the top board unless a diamond comes. My opponents could have hands like 5-8 for the nut straight on the bottom. They could also have hands like king 6 with nut diamonds. There's definitely a scenario where both opponents have 5-8, or maybe a set on the top and now a spade draw on the bottom. After thinking it over, I think that my queens are strong enough to go all in, especially given the three-way action and the fact that the small blind just called. I decide that I'm going to be all in here, so I go all in for 2,300. The small blind thinks about it a bit, and then calls it off. This is where I get the bad news. The button says he has king king, and the small blind has 5-8, with spades and a 4. So this is pretty much worst case scenario. I'm beat on the bottom unless a queen comes. My diamonds are live, which is basically my only hope to get half this pot. I could also get some money back from the side pot if my opponent doesn't hit spades or a straight on the bottom board. Either way, this is definitely not the scenario I want to be in. Hoping the dealer can save me. We head to the run out, and I'm praying for a diamond on the top. The top river is the 2 of spades, definitely losing there. The bottom river is the 7 of spades. This means our opponent with 8-6, 5-4 with 2 spades is going to scoop us with a straight on top and a flush on the bottom. I think where I went wrong in this one was not giving my opponents enough credit. The button player is a strong regular, and he's actually the guy that bluffed me earlier. The guy that scooped the pot is a very strong pro. I think my play is fine if I was playing against 2 fishy opponents, but given that these opponents aren't fish, and there were 5 callers on the flop, I think I could have taken a different line. A few days after this hand, I asked the strong pro who scooped this hand what he thought my best line was. Can I just check fold? Should I have bet myself? Do I just call 970 and evaluate the river? His feedback was that I should have just called the 970, with the reasoning being that there was a dry side pot. If I make my hand on the river, I can easily call. If I miss my hand, I can fold, and he'll have less incentive to bluff rivers because of the dry side pot. When he put it like this, it seemed super simple. Maybe I was just overconfident from winning so much. Either way, I'm left with dust, and I rebuy for 3,000. I'm only down 2,000 at this point, and there have been days where I've been down 3,000 and come back and won 3,000, so I'm still hopeful. Let's see what happens in these next hands. I have a $3,000 stack after the rebuy, and I look down at ace-ace, 8-4 with ace-high clubs. The under the gun player raises to 80, button calls. I'm going to pot it. I make it 355. The under the gun player calls, and the button folds, so we're heads up out of position against the same player that just stacked us in the bomb pot. The flop comes 6-7-4 rainbow, so I have aces still. I check it to my opponent, and he checks it back. We're going to get a free card on the turn, and it's a good one. It's the 4 diamonds. So I make trips. I think the best play here is to play a defensive line. Give my opponent some rope to take a stab. I check it, and my opponent checks back once again. The river's the 8 of clubs, giving me a full house. So this is how you play pocket aces. You pot it pre-flop, and use the other 2 cards to make a boat. I definitely want to go for value, and not check it, and let him check it back again. I bet 550. My opponent snap folds. He said he couldn't wait to see this one on the vlog. So after a month, here you go. I had a boat. Good fold. In the next hand of note, I look down at queen, 5-4 in the big blind. There's a bunch of limps. I throw in 15 more dollars since I'm getting good pot odds to hit a set. We see a flop 6 ways, and it's good. 4-7 queen with 2 diamonds. I got top set, the best hand in PLO. Since I'm in early position, I decide to check, intending to check raise. My plan doesn't work because it checks around. So we head to the turn, and I have mixed feelings about this one. It's the queen of hearts. So I make quads. It's a great hand, but it's going to be hard to get value. I decide to check again, give my opponent some rope, and the hijack takes the bait. He bets 50. I think check raising here would be an overplay because it'd be hard for my opponent to have any boats, and he definitely wouldn't have the nut boats because I block all of them. So I just call. I'm intending to give him more rope on the river. The river's the 5 of clubs. I check it to him. Come on, buddy. Bet again so I can raise you. He thinks about it. He looks like he wants to bet, but he thinks the better of it and checks back. I say quads. Obviously it's good. We win a small pot. I wish I wouldn't have trapped on the flop, but sometimes you trap and it works and sometimes it doesn't. On to the next one. Buckle your seatbelts for this one. I look down at ace-queen, 10-6 with ace-high clubs and the low jack. I open it to 80, get 2 callers. We're 3 ways to the flop, which comes 8-6-2 with 2 clubs. So I flop the nut flush draw. Small blind checks to me. I bet 200. Only the button calls, and we're heads up to the turn. The turn's a 9 of hearts, which gives me extra equity. A jack would give me the nut straight, a club gives me the nut flush, and if my opponent has a set, a 7 would be an out too. My opponent has a lot of hands in his range that I can put pressure on. There's weak 2 pairs, there's straight draws that didn't get there, there's pair or 2 pair plus worse flush draw type hands. So I decided to put the pressure on, and I bet 525. It's on the button, and he goes all in for 1,030. When my opponent takes his line, he's definitely going to have a better hand, so it's a math decision at this point. Do I have enough outs to call? I have outs to a club and a jack, maybe outs to a 7. I do the math and decide I have to call it off. We're going to run it twice. My opponent shows that he has the low straight with 5-7, so I actually have a lot of outs. Any club, 7, or jack would give me a better hand. Gonna need some help from the dealer. The first river is a 10 of spades, which is not going to improve me. The second river is the 5 of hearts, also doesn't improve me. My opponent's going to win both, and I just went from being stuck to more stuck. I gotta say, poker's a lot of fun when you're winning and you're hitting your outs. Not so much when you're losing, but it is what it is. On to the next one. This next hand's another bomb pot. I have ace jack 8-4 with ace high diamonds, and flop good on both. 3-2 king with 2 diamonds on the top, and queen king 6 with 2 diamonds on the bottom. So I have a straight draw on both boards and the nut flush draw on both boards. I'm in middle position and bet 200 when it checks to me. The button calls and the small blind goes all in for 460. I call, the button calls. We're going 3 ways to the turn, but the action's heads up for the dry side pot. The top board's a 6 of spades, and the bottom's the 4 of clubs. No help on either. I check, the button checks it back. The top board's a 5 of clubs, giving me a wheel, so I hit my gut shot. The bottom board is a 7 of clubs, so I don't make anything there. I check it again, hoping the button checks it back. He checks it back, and I show my hand. My wheel's good on the top, and the small blind that went all in. I can't remember what he had, but it definitely beats me on the bottom board. And I end up chopping this one with the small blind. I'm going to get a rebate here, and I'm going to end the session down $2,300. If I hadn't punted in that one bomb pot, and I could have ran just a little bit better, would have been a solid day overall, but it is what it is. Gonna book a loss. Let's hit the outro. I hope you enjoyed this vlog. If you did, make sure to subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. Hoping to bring you some more vlogs soon and not be gone for 3 weeks again. Hopefully I can win this week, get some motivation back, get some money back. But with that, that's going to be the end of the vlog. I'll see y'all later. Peace.